بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. We are still going over this book, Ubudiyyah, by Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, translated by Nasir al-Din al-Khattab and published by two publishers, Taha Publishers and Al-Hidayah. This, the binding of this book is somewhat better. This book has the Quran verses in Arabic, which is somewhat better. But we finished part 1 and part 2, and today, inshallah, we'll start part 3. Part 1 of the book was basically about the definition of al-Ubudiyyah, definition of ibadah and Ubudiyyah. And what did we say about the definition anyway? What's al-Ubudiyyah? So it is, you got it right. The concept is right. It is all actions, sayings and abstentions that are pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether hidden or manifest. So actions, statements, aqwal, af'al, turuk, abstentions, to abstain from. Because abstentions are, a different type of actions, but they are actions. There is effort that you put into abstinence, sometimes greater than the effort you put into action. Sometimes it is much harder on people to stay away from haram than to do halal or than to do wajib. So it is much easier on people to go for hajj and to do all the work required than to abstain from something that's haram, like haram earnings, haram this or haram that. So that's why it is important to highlight abstentions or turuk. Whatever you leave for the sake of Allah, whatever you abandon for the sake of Allah, you shun for the sake of Allah. And then we said the exterior, hidden or manifest. This is the ibadah in terms of the ingredients of it. But the ibadah as a state of being, what is it? And the ingredients meaning the parts, the divisions. But the essence of ibadah as a state of being, as a station, what is it? What is ibadah? As a concept, as a condition. Yes. Those are the conditions of validity for any ibadah to be valid. It has to be correct with the right intention. It has to be for Allah, and it has to be correct. It has to be for Allah, that is the application of La ilaha illallah. Has to be correct, that is Muhammadun Rasulullah, meaning there is no one that can tell you about what Allah likes and dislikes except the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Yes. So it is tamam al-dhulli wal-khudu' ma'a tamam al-hubb wal-ta'zim. So it is the ultimate humility and subjugation with ultimate love and adoration. And we said that you can't have those combined for anyone unless you worship that one. If you have those combined for someone, then you are in a state of worship. Because you can love your son, but you're not going to show humility, subjugation, We said that the closest example here would be your father. You show some humility and you show love, but are they ultimate? No. Because if your father told you to do something haram, will you show humility and subjugation? You will not show subjugation. Subjugation means khudu', that you will conform, that you will comply, that you will obey. You don't. Therefore, it is not ultimate. But if it is ultimate, then you are worshipping that being, no matter who that being is. Okay, so that is, part one talked about other issues as well, but mainly it was talking about the definition, introduction, and so on. Part two was talking about the obligation of enjoining good and forbidding bad. To be a true worshipper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to enjoin that which He likes and forbid that which He dislikes. It talked about no equality, that there is no equality between those who worship Allah and those who don't. And if you are a true worshiper of Allah, you will not hold equal the things He likes and the things that He dislikes, the people He likes and the people He dislikes, those who comply and those who defy. And then it talked about inconsistencies of people that, have false claims, that use qadr as, to justify their deviation or corruption. Particularly qadr was talked about in some detail here. And then we talked about ibadah and righteousness and different acts of worship. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions ibadah along with another act of worship, we said last time that this is to emphasize the importance of this act of worship. And now we will go over part 3, and it starts by different levels of Iman. It's page 61 from this particular version, and page 99 here. So the different levels of Iman. So Imam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said what means if the above is clear, and he was talking, the above was talking about Ubudiyyah being the ultimate station, Ubudiyyah being the station of the prophets and messengers, and all messengers were sent with one message. It was all about Abudullah ma lakum min ilahin ghayru. Worship Allah, you have no God but Him. So if the above is clear, then it is obvious that people will differ greatly in this regard, in the reality of Iman. Thus they may be divided into two types, rank and file and elite. So the umum or the awam and khawas. And the relationship of Allah to different people will differ accordingly. So the public of the believers and the, high ranking amongst the believers. And then he talks about slavery to the material world. Hence, in this ummah, the issue of shirk is subtler than the noise made by the footsteps of an ant, as the Prophet ﷺ said, "Shirku akhfa min dabib an-naml." According to a sahih hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Rich is the slave, rich or may he not prosper, ta'is, may he not prosper." Ta'is from ta'asa. Ta'asa is sadness and grief. Ta'is is sad, depressed. Ta'is, may he be depressed and sad, may he not prosper. Ta'isa wa intakas. Rich is the slave of dirham. Intakas means what? May he flip upside down. But it means what here? may he be in distress. Intikas is to sort of to go back into your old wicked ways. When you say naksa, when you say the patient had intakas, the patient, on his way out of disease, during his recovery, he plunged back into sickness. So that is intakas. So the Prophet ﷺ here says, Ta'isa wa intakas. Ta'isa, or he says, Ta'isa abdu al-dirham, Ta'isa abdu dinar. May he be distressed, the slave of the dirham. May he be distressed, the slave of the dinar. You know the dirham and dinar? Dirham is the silver coin, silver currency, and dinar is the gold currency that they always used. Up until now, they use dirham and dinar. In some countries, they use dirham. Emirat, they use dirham. In Kuwait, they use dinar. So, Ta'isa abdu dirham, Ta'isa abdu dinar. May he be in distress, the slave of dirham. May he be in distress, the slave of dinar. Ta'isa abdul qatifati, Ta'isa abdul khamisa. May he be in distress, the slave of qatifa and khamisa are two different types of velvety and silky fabric. The exact translation of which I'm not aware of, and it may be hard to find the exact translation. But it is velvety and silky materials. Basically upscale fabric, upscale clothes. Ta'isa abdul qatifati, Ta'isa abdul khamisa, Ta'isa wa intakas, may he be in distress, and may he be It is even not translated here. But you understand what intakas means. Like, may he, would there be a good translation for this? No, miserable, distressed, all of this is true. But intakas means like the patient is on his way of recovery and then he goes back into sickness. It is relapse. Yeah, relapse. But relapse here would, it would not really sort of convey the whole meaning, because intakas means may he be upside down. Like, recede. You know what it means. So may he intakas. May he be in distress, and may he be muntakis. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, وَإِذَا شِيكَ مَنْ تُقِشْ. So, and if he is poked by a thorn, may it not come out of him. May it not come out of him. So it means what? It means that he will not achieve his goals and objectives, nor will he be able to recover from the pains and suffering of what he is about. He's about slavery to the material world. He's about slavery to brand names. He's about slavery to Nike, for instance. He's about slavery to Mercedes-Benz. He's about slavery to certain type of glasses or frames. That if he can't buy this particular brand, he will not be satisfied at all. And you may think that this is something that teenagers have, but adults do have this as well. They may be able to control their sort of emotions externally, but they are distressed inside. He is distressed inside because he couldn't buy this car, or he's distressed inside because he didn't afford this house or that, and so on and so forth. So the idea here is the Prophet ﷺ added, and if he was poked by a thorn, may it not come out of him, to also give you that other meaning, which is that he will not achieve the happiness that he's looking for through those brand names or those positions of this dunya, acquisition of wealth or status or this or that. But not only that, but the pain that will come with this, he will not be able to get rid of. So the pain that will come with the pursuit of wealth, he will not be able to get rid of that pain. What is that pain? The pain is, if someone really is into money and then they work so hard, that is pain. And they worry so much about losing the money, that is pain. And when they actually lose some of the money, they have so much grief over losing it, that is pain, another form of pain. So money will not get him where he wants to be, will not make him happy, and also if he is to suffer any pain from this, he will not be able to overcome it. It will stay with him. Grief, worry, and to just work himself like a horse. And at the end, he will not be happy with all of that. Okay. So this is Ubudiyyah. This hadith, and this hadith is reported also by Bukhari from Abi Hurairah radiallahu anhu. So this hadith is telling you about, Ubudiyyah, so that you as a Muslim, you see, the Prophet ﷺ came where people actually worshipped idols. But the Prophet ﷺ wanted to make sure that his Sahaba will not only consider Ubudiyyah the opposite of worshipping idols. Ubudiyyah is when you have that ultimate subjugation and ultimate adoration for other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ubudiyyah is when your main concern, your main occupation is with something other than the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is Ubudiyyah. And you could be the abd of yourself, you could be the abd of the money, you could be the abd of brand names, you could be the abd of fine cars, you could be the abd of fine dining, you could be the abd of fine housing, you could be the abd of, your spouse, whether it's your wife or husband, and so on. So the Prophet ﷺ described such a person as being a slave of the dirham and dinar and of velvet and brocade. Brocade is a type of fabric, but is that like common? I don't know. And stated that he is doomed to failure. He also prayed that if such a person were pricked by a thorn, which is a minor affliction, he would not be able to remove it. Like he would not be able to recover from the suffering. This is the situation of a person who may be afflicted by calamity, but is not able to overcome it because he is doomed to failure. So he can neither achieve his aim nor rid himself of the thing he hates. So the money, the brand names, the cars, the houses will neither give him happiness, nor will he be able to rid himself from the pain that comes along with the acquisition of those things. That is a prerequisite for the acquisition of those things. This is the situation of one who is a slave to wealth and material possessions, who was described as being content when he is given something and angry when it is withheld from him. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, describing those people, and among them are men who slander you, that is speaking to the Prophet ﷺ, in the matter of the distribution of alms. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَلْمِزُكَ فِي الصَّدَقَاتِ. They slander you regarding your distribution of sadaqah. When the Prophet ﷺ distributed sadaqah, they were unhappy because they did not take what they expected to be entitled to. فَإِنْ أُعْطُوا مِنْهَا رَضُوا. Then if they are given a part thereof, they are pleased. But if not, behold, they are indignant. وَإِنْ لَمْ يَعْطَوْا إِذَا هُمْ يَسْخَطُونَ. They are indignant, or they are, I think يسخطون, it would mean angry, upset, mad. Displeased. Okay, so the thing is, what matters to them is the money, is wealth. So regardless of the motives of the Prophet ﷺ, why he gave us certain people and did not give us, for instance, they would never think about this. They would never say, well, they may be more deserving. They would never say they may be less fortunate than us, or they may be in more distress than we are, they may be more needy. So they don't think about this. It is basically black and white. If you give them, they are happy. If you don't, they are upset. Because what matters to them is the money itself. Neither their pleasure nor their anger is for the sake of Allah. Their pleasure and anger rests on whether they are given or not. And that is, that's something that we have to watch in ourselves as well. We have to watch this in our hearts as well, because we may be doing this day in and day out, and we're not noticing it, right? Like if you are sort of in the masjid, for instance, if you were let to do something that you wanted to do in the masjid, you're happy. And if you're not, you're upset. If you work with an organization, for instance, and someone sort of bypasses you, or someone gives someone else more recognition, and you're not given the same recognition, even though you worked harder, or you think you worked harder, and then you get upset. And you say, well, I'm not working anymore with those guys. They don't recognize my efforts. So then you should say to yourself, is it about those guys' recognition? You know, should you not worry about Allah's recognition? And if you really did well or did better than others, shouldn't you be happy that Allah must have recognized that? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all hearing, all seer, and all fair. So that should be the end of it. The end of it is that you were recognized. And it doesn't matter whether, X or Y or Z recognized you or not, because you were recognized. It is the same concept in this ayah with the hypocrites that used to be upset with the Prophet ﷺ when he does not give them. But like the first hadith tells you, do not restrict ibadah to bowing and prostrating. There is a slave of dinar and a slave of dirham and a slave of brand names of clothes and so on. This ayah should not be only restricted to being given material things, even when it comes to recognition, when it comes to status. If you work for this recognition, you are working for your ego. And If you will stop the good deeds that you do because people fail to recognize them, then you should say to yourself, I was working all along for that recognition. What a waste of my life. Because whether people recognize you or not, at the end of the day, what if they recognized you? What if they gave you like sort of like a plaque with recognition on it and something like that at the annual conference? At the end of the day, you have wasted your life. Whether or not they recognized you, if you have been working for this, then you have wasted your life. And when do you discover that you have been working for this? When you get upset if it doesn't happen, then that is what you've been working for. And that is why you should go back and say to yourself, you know, what a waste of my life, what a waste of my last year. If you don't do it really for Allah alone, you're much better off not doing it. You are much better off not doing it. You're much better off making money, you know, spending this time to make money, or spending this time in the gym, you know, because those actions do not need to be sincere. But whatever it is that is meant to be for Allah, if you do it for other than Allah, you are you're exposed to His anger. Whereas if you were just working, making money, you know, or building up your body in the gym, you would have been at least safe from sin. So whatever should be done for Allah should never be done for other than Him. So acts of charity, you know, acts of goodness, you know, certainly acts of worship. Then Imam Taymiyyah proceeded here to say this is also the situation of a man who is attached to a position of leadership or to a beautiful image or any other kind of desire. That beautiful image could be any beautiful image. Or any other kind of desire. If he gets what he wants, he's happy, but if he doesn't achieve it, he becomes angry. So he is a slave to whatever is that he desires, because enslavement is essentially the enslavement of the heart. Whatever the heart is enthralled by is the thing of which the heart is a slave. So if your heart is completely controlled by the desire for something, you are the slave of that thing. No matter what that thing is, whether it's a material thing or even propositional, sort of certain status, you know, to succeed in some research, for instance. If that is all of your concern, you are a slave of that propositional ambition. It is not bodily, it's not carnal, it's not fleshy, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be like a bodily desire, you know, shahwat al-ta'am or food or sex or something of that nature. It could be a propositional desire, such as to have a certain status or recognition, succeed in your research, succeed in your career, get admitted into an Ivy League university, or all of this is not bad. We're saying if that is your major concern, for which you sacrifice other things, then that is dangerous. So whatever it is that your heart is, because he said what? Keep this in mind, because enslavement is essentially the enslavement of the heart. Al-Ubudiyyah إنما هي عبودية القلب. So if your heart is enslaved, and that is why a poet said, Ibn Taymiyyah here, rahimahullah, mentions this verse of poetry. So the poet said, the slave is free so long as he is content, and the free man is a slave so long as he is greedy. العبد حر ما قنع والحر عبد ما طمع. العبد حر ما قنع. So العبد is the slave. حر, free. ما قنع, as long as he is. قنع is the past tense for يقنع. قناعة, which is content. And الحر عبد, that's the opposite here. الحر, the free man, is a slave. ما طمع, as long as he is greedy, from tama. And then he also mentioned a verse of poetry here that is Imam Shafi'i's. I followed my desires and they enslaved me. If only I had been content with my lot, I would be free. أطعت مطامعي فاستعبدتني ولو أني قنعت لكنت حرا. And certainly Imam Shafi'i did not do that. But that's part of his sort of self-discipline. It is said that greed and longing are like chains around the neck and shackles on the feet. Even if the claim is removed from the neck, the feet are still shackled. Or even if the chain is removed from the neck, the chains are still, the feet are still shackled. It was reported that Umar radiallahu anhu said, greed is poverty and resignation is wealth. When any one of you gives up hope of something, he becomes independent of it. And that is actually the very meaning of the word ghina in Arabic. Because ghina in Arabic does not mean, ghani means what? What does ghani mean in Arabic? It is the opposite of poor, rich. But literally, it does not mean rich because you are ghani from what? From istaghna, which means that he did not need it. Like, ana astaghni ank means that I do not need you. I do not depend on you. So it is basically about self-sufficiency. If you want to translate it literally, it would be self-sufficient. So ghani is self-sufficient. Because you are never ghani until you have no more need. Right? And when can you be ghani? If you don't have more needs. You draw that line. You know, it is not drawn for you. You draw the line. You say, well, that is enough for me. I am ghani. I have enough. Now, if you have, $50 billion, but you feel you want to have more, you're not ghani. Because you did not draw the line there. And some people actually draw the line much closer. So whatever it is that they have, they think they have too much. And they keep on spending it in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they think that they have too much, more than they actually need. And those are the people who are truly, truly ghani, self-sufficient. So Umar radiallahu anhu said, when any one of you gives up hope of something, he becomes independent of it. So if you just don't seek it, you're not dependent on it, you will not have worries about it. And that's it, you just forget about it. That's it. This is something that, keep in mind that all of this is about you as a person. But as an ummah, collectively, we should seek power. We should seek all sorts of power. But if you seek it for the ummah, will you be distressed if you miss it, if you lose it? No, you will not be distressed. You're actually doing all of this for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If He gives it to you, than it is for him. You spend it in his cause. If he doesn't, then I worked hard to do what you wanted me to do, to empower my ummah through, various means of power, but I couldn't. Certainly that there is a benefit in people who can empower the ummah. Certainly Umar was not like anyone else. And the Prophet ﷺ made dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may guide Umar. So strength, whether it's physical strength or financial strength or any form of strength, is not bad. And when it is used well for the right purpose, then it is actually good. But it is all about the right purpose. And to really verify that you're doing it for the right purpose is quite hard. And to purify your purpose and intent is quite hard. But it is worth the struggle. This is the final struggle. The struggle to purify whatever it is that you do is the final struggle and the ultimate struggle and the most important one. And the most crucial and pivotal one is to purify your intentions in that which you do, not to do more. Just make sure that what you're doing is actually for Allah, is purified. This is something which anyone can feel in his heart. For when he gives up hope of something, he no longer wants it or longs for it. He no longer feels in need of it or of the one who can help him to get it. If he longs for and hopes for something, then his heart is attached to it, and he feels that he is in need of it and of the one who he thinks can be the means to this end. This is the case in matters of wealth and power and beautiful images or people, etc. So, if you want to marry a certain person, for instance, you will show so much, like if you're really controlled by the image, you will show so much humility to her dad, for instance, that you may have never shown to your own father, which is sad and pathetic, but it is true, because you have been enslaved by the image, and you think that he is the one who is in control. He is the one who can or may not allow you to reach your objective. Seeking sustenance from Allah, not other people. So Ibrahim alayhi salam advised, فَابْتَغُوا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ الرِّزْقَ وَاعْبُدُوهُ وَاشْكُرُوا لَهُ إِلَيْهِ تُرْجَعُونَ. Then seek sustenance with Allah, worship Him, and be grateful to Him. To Him will be your return. Everyone needs provision and sustenance, rizq. If a person seeks this rizq from Allah, then he will be a slave to Allah and feel in need of Him. If he seeks it from some created being, he will be enslaved by and feel in need of that being. This is why it is basically forbidden to ask for anything from another created being, although it is permitted to do so in cases of necessity. There are many ahadith forbidding this kind of asking from people. For example, the Prophet ﷺ said, one of you will keep on asking until he comes on the day of resurrection with no flesh on his face. Reported by Bukhari and Muslim. And then the Prophet ﷺ also said, whoever begs from people when he has enough to make him independent, his begging will appear on the day of resurrection as scratches or gashes on his face. Begging, the Prophet ﷺ also said, begging is not permitted except for the one who is burdened with heavy debts, or who owes blood money, or who is suffering from crushing poverty. The Prophet ﷺ also said, if any one of you were to take a rope and go and gather wood, that would be better for him than asking people for help, which they may or may not give him. Reported by Al-Bukhari. Prophet ﷺ also said, whatever wealth you receive without asking for it or hoping for it, take it. And whatever you do not receive, do not wish for it. And that is agreed upon, reported by Al-Bukhari and Muslim. So the prohibition of asking for things, in fact, this used to be part of the bay'ah. You know, bay'ah, when you pledge allegiance. So when they give bay'ah to the Prophet ﷺ on Islam, it used to be part of bay'ah, وَأَلَّا نَسْأَلَ النَّاسَ شَيْئًا. Ubadah ibn Samit says, or said, بَيَعْنَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَى السَّمْعِ وَالطَّاعَةِ فِي الْعُسْرِ وَالْيُسْرِ وَالْمَنْشَةِ وَالْمَكْرَةِ وَأَلَّا نُنَازِعَ الْأَمْرَ أَهْلَهُ وَأَلَّا نَسْأَلَ النَّاسَ شَيْئًا. We gave the pledge to the Prophet ﷺ to follow and obey in hardship and ease, and in times of energy, in times of laziness. Like whether we have energy or we don't have energy, we still obey and comply. وَأَلَّا نُنَازِعَ الْأَمْرَ أَهْلَهُ, and that we do not compete in any matter with its due owners or possessors. وَأَلَّا نَسْأَلَ النَّاسَ شَيْئًا, and that we do not ask people anything. We do not ask of people anything. To the point where the Sahaba, it is reported that the Sahaba radhiyallahu alayhim, if someone dropped something while he is on his horse, he would not say to someone, pick it for me, someone on the ground. Someone on the ground. You know, if you're on your horse, you need to come down, and it's quite a ways away, right? So they would come down and pick it up and not ask someone on the ground to pick it up for them, because of this bay'ah, that we don't ask anything of people. Because the more independent of people you become, the more independent of people you feel deep in your heart, and you truly are, the more self-sufficient, ghani, and the more content, and the greater abd lillah you become. Because none of you is abd for the people. Not a single piece of you shows that humility and subjugation, or, you know, has this much hope in people's kindness, or in people's, charity or charitable doing. So you basically, you completely disregard them. You have no fear from them. You have no hope in them. And whatever it is that you do by them, you do it for the sake of Allah. You know, your acts of kindness are for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And only then, they will be consistent. And only then, you will enjoy that charitable doing, charitable behavior, the extension of kindness to people. You will truly enjoy it if you don't accept any return, if you don't accept any payback. You know the story of Mistah ibn Uthatha and Abu Bakr. So when Mistah, slandered Aisha radiallahu anha, and Abu Bakr used to spend on him, he used to give him like an allowance. Like Mistah lived off of the allowance that Abu Bakr gave him periodically. So when he slandered Aisha, and then he accused her of that which she is clear of, you know how huge that is for a father, particularly for an Arab father, tribal father, 1400 years ago. Tribal Arab father 1400 years ago, someone says something about his daughter, that is more than murder. That is more than murdering his father. So if he murdered his father, it would be lighter than to slander his daughter. But despite all of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to Abu Bakr, وَلَا يَأْتَلِ أُولُو الْفَضْلِ مِنْكُمْ وَالسَّعَةِ لِيُؤْتُوا أُولِي الْقُرْبَى والمساكين والمهاجرين في سبيل الله وليعفوا وليصفحوا ولا تحبون أن يغفر الله لكم والله غفور رحيم. And let those of virtue and prosperity amongst you not swear to withhold from the poor and the poor and the needy and those who immigrated, because Mustah immigrated from Mecca to Al-Madinah in Allah's cause. Muhajirina fi sabilillah, those who immigrated for Allah's cause. وَلِيَعْفُوا وَلِيَصْفَحُوا وَلِيَعْفُوا, and let them pardon and forgive. أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَن يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ, don't you wish Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive you? وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ, and Allah is most forgiving, most merciful. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking Abu Bakr here to do what? To continue to spend on the person who stabbed them and who slandered his daughter, which is the most painful thing, you know. But if you're doing it for Allah, you will be able to continue. You'll be able to carry on, because after all, Allah is saying to him, was it for Mistah? It was not for Mistah. And since it was not for Mistah, why are you stopping it? Abu Bakr said, I'll stop. So Abu Bakr did not say, I will slaughter Mistah. Abu Bakr said, I will just quit spending on Mistah. That's it. You know, but isn't this like a very expected thing? You know, he's not punishing him, although he deserved punishment. He's not punishing him. He just said that I personally would quit spending on Mistah. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding him that that you did it for me. You did not do it for Mistah. So if you did it for me, why should you stop it now? No matter what Mistah does, why should you stop it? And then let them pardon and forgive. Don't you want Allah to forgive you? So if that is how you treat people, that is how you will be treated by Allah. Then he says the Prophet ﷺ did not like anyone to ask for anything, whether he asked for it verbally or by longing in his heart. According to a Sahih Hadith, he ﷺ said, whoever wants to be independent, Allah will make him independent. وَمَنِ اسْتَغْنَى يُغْنِهِ اللَّهُ. Whoever wants not to have to ask people for anything, Allah will help him to be free of that. Whoever wants to be patient, Allah will give him patience. Nobody has ever been given anything better and more abundant than patient. So, من استغنى يغنيه الله ومن استعفف يعفه الله ومن تصبر يصبره الله وما أعطي أحد عطاء خيرا ولا أوسع من الصبر. The Prophet ﷺ advised his closest companions not to ask anyone for anything. It was reported in al-Musnad that if Abu Bakr dropped his whip while riding, he would not ask anyone to hand it to him. But he would say, my close friend, he would say, my close friend commanded me not to ask people for anything. His close friend is the Prophet ﷺ himself. And Muslim and others reported from Auf ibn Malik that the Prophet ﷺ received the bay'ah, or oath of allegiance, from him with a group of people, and whispered to them that they should not ask people for anything. Some of the people of that group, if they happened to drop a whip, would not even ask anyone to hand it to them. Many ayat and hadith indicate that we should ask from the Creator, not from other created things. For example, Allah says, so when you have finished from your occupation, فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانْصَبْ وَإِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَارْغَب. Then stand up for Allah's worship. Stand up for prayer, meaning stand up for prayer. وَإِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَارْغَب. And to your Lord alone turn all your intentions and hopes and your invocations. وَإِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَارْغَب. Turn your hopes to your Lord alone. You should have no hope in anyone other than your Lord alone. And the Prophet ﷺ said to Ibn Abbas, if you must ask for anything, ask Allah, and if you seek help from Allah. Reported by Tirmidhi. That is when Ibn Abbas was riding behind him. Ibrahim alayhi salam said, فَابْتَغُوا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ الرِّزْقِ. Then seek sustenance from Allah. In Arabic, this phrase reads, فَابْتَغُوا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ الرِّزْقِ, which translates literally as, then seek with Allah sustenance. The prepositional phrase, عِنْدَ اللَّهِ, with Allah, comes first for a reason, which is to indicate exclusivity, as if to say, do not seek sustenance except from Allah. فَابْتَغُوا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ الرِّزْقِ versus فَابْتَغُوا الرِّزْقَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. So seek with Allah the provisions, not seek the provisions with Allah. So seek with Allah. It infer exclusivity. Seek it only from Allah. Inshallah, in the next week, we will go over the next part here, which is complaining only to Allah. Complaining only to Allah. The poet said, لا تشكون إلى العباد فإنما تشكو الرحيم إلى الذي لا يرحمه. Do not complain to al-ibad, for when you do so, you are complaining to the one who has no mercy against the one who has all mercy. Because when you complain to al-ibad, you're actually complaining to them about Allah, because your decrees are destined by Him. And whatever happens to you is controlled by Him. So when you complain to them, you are complaining to them, to those who have no mercy or little mercy, about the one who has all mercy. But what you should do is you should accept your destinies and you should complain to Allah. Yaqub said, وَأَشْكُو بَثِّي وَحُزْنِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. And I confide into Allah my distress and my grief. Now that does not mean that one may not ask the people or may not confide in someone who is a wise friend that would remind him of Allah. But it should not be in the form of complaining against the decrees of Allah. But someone may ask people to help him out, to ask his brothers to help him out. The Prophet ﷺ borrowed money, usually for the interest of the community. When there was a need, he did. But there has got to be a need, and you should do it for that need with the intent that you return it, and without any price. Without any price, meaning that you will not compromise. You will not show unwarranted humility to the one who lends you. You will not compromise, You will not do something haram. And if you stay away from all the above, then it is okay to ask your brothers to help you, to support you, within their means. And that's the difference between superstitious, claims from people or requests from people, such as when you go to someone to ask someone to give you a child or something. And you can certainly ask them to make dua for you. But if you think that someone has power to do something that is beyond human capacity, then that is forbidden, even if that person is alive. It is not only superstitious when you go and ask someone who's dead. It is also superstitious if you ask someone who's alive. Except if you ask them to make dua only. Because if they are alive, they are capable of making dua. But don't ask them something beyond their capacity. If someone is a carpenter and you ask them to make like a closet for you or cupboards, that's fine. That is within their capacity, their human, abilities and expertise also. But in general, the less you ask of people, the better off you will be in the sight of Allah and the sight of the people as well. The more you ask of people, the less you will become in their sight and in Allah's sight, particularly when there is no need. جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.